Hey everybody, welcome to the Virtual Synergy Show. I'm Abracadabra, and today we're going to take a look at the Celestial Power Set. Hopefully this guide will be a generic guide and just kind of answer some of the questions that you may have about Celestial, if you do have any questions, kind of give you a better understanding of the power. So let's talk about this from the beginning. So first of all, thematically, Celestial is supposed to be a godly type power based off the Spectre and Eclipso. Those are kind of like your two characters that you default to if you do the inspired by in the character creator. So that's kind of the concept. But the thing with Celestial is that it's based off of kind of a light and dark situation where you can kind of control both powers. And so if we take a look at the Celestial power trees here, you'll see that under the power tree we have a blessed tree and we have a cursed tree. You'll notice it's not an XXX cursed XXX tree, it's just a cursed tree. Just an inside joke for people who are in the know there. Alright, so the idea here is that we have a blessed and cursed tree, and these are kind of our light and dark powers. Blessed, of course, being light, cursed, of course, being dark. Now, in most other power sets in DCUO, one tree usually is your DPS focus tree, and then the other tree is kind of your support role tree. That is not the case in Celestial. In fact, both trees are pretty much equal to each other, just the light version and the dark version of the same powers. And that's kind of what you have to really know right off the bat here, is that Celestial is a combo power. So what that means is that you do a move off your power tray, and then you'll hit other buttons to kind of enhance the move or keep the move going. In the case of Celestial, in order to combo these moves, you must have both moves selected on both trees, or in other words, you must have a power point invested in both of them. So like for instance here under the Blessed tree, we have Smite. That's the first power there, and you'll see down below there it'll say Tap, Melee, Haunt, Cleansed. So that's what it combos into. And if we take a look at the Cursed tree, you'll see the first power here is Haunt, and it says Tap, Melee, Smite, Corrupted. So Haunt is this power here, and that actually combos into Smite. So in order for us to combo these two powers in whichever direction you go, you have to have a power point spent on both of them. They don't both necessarily need to be in your loadout tray, but you do need to have a power point spent on all of them. And in fact, this pretty much is the way that Celestial works down the line. Here we have Blight on the Cursed tree. You'll see there that it says Tap, Melee, Hold, Range for Admonish, Corrupted. If we go to the Blessed tree, you'll see here we have Admonish, and it says Tap, Melee, Hold, Range for the Blight, Cleanse. So you can see down the line here that these moves will combo into each other. And that is pretty much about 90% of the way this works. But in order for you to combo, you must have a power point spent in both trees. So I just wanted to make that clear. One thing that you do want to know too is if you've played with other combo powers like Hard Light or Atomic or Rage, Celestial is a little bit different than those. It leans more towards the Hard Light side of things because you do have to have the multiple powers selected with power points. The one big difference though is that Hard Light in theory can kind of chain all these powers together and run an infinite thing. So you can go from one power to the next power to the next power to the next power, and they don't need to be on your loadout bar, but you do need to have power points selected in them. But typically one power can branch off into multiple directions. Here in Celestial it's much simpler. It's just a one-to-one. So like in the case of the two first powers we talked about there, Smite and Haunt, they can only combo into each other. They can't combo into any of the other powers. So as long as we have those two powers invested in with power points, we can go back and forth and rotate through those powers. But you can't go from Smite into some other power that isn't a Haunt. It's just the way that it is. Alright, now as far as the way that Celestial works, as far as the combos are concerned, like I said, you have to have the power points spent into them, and then of course you do have to hit the appropriate button combo, and of course each move here has its own different set of buttons that you press to get it to go. So I'm not going to get too specific into that. You can read those off the power description there. I will give you some pointers on kind of doing the combos though in a little bit here. Alright, so let me tell you a couple things here about Celestial. First of all, it's a precision power. So anything that you want to do as far as your mods and things like that when it pertains to DPS, you'll definitely want to spec in the way of precision. That is definitely the more beneficial way to go. We do have some might elements in Celestial, but they're pretty weak, and most of the number crunching kind of indicates that precision is the better way to go. Certainly what I would suggest is, after watching this, if you have any further questions, of course there's other YouTube videos out there with people who have a lot more knowledge and are probably a bit better at using Celestial than I am. And also there's a great guide on the forums too from Remander. It's called The Otherworldly Guide to Celestial, and this will give you the opportunity to kind of read a very detailed guide about all the things there. Not only does he have all the powers laid out and kind of sample loadouts and rotations and stuff like that, but he's even got like times and of powers and how much power they take and all that good stuff. So if you want something a little more advanced after you're done with this here, you can go check that out. Alright, so I'm going to start with the cookie cutter Celestial rotation here. This is pretty much the standard bread and butter rotation that everybody will use. This rotation is particularly good in content that's at level, so where things don't die like immediately, because this particular rotation, while it is kind of powerful, it does take a very long time to do, so it's not very efficient in things that are under tier or duos or things like that. We'll talk about that in a little bit here too. Alright, so let's talk about the rotation here. So the first move that we're going to talk about here is Retribution into Wither. This is a move that you can get early on in the tree. This is like your 35%er, or it's on the second level of your tree. It's probably the most powerful second level power that you'll find in any of the power sets. In fact, the devs have even gone as far to say that that's the way that it is by design. Once you learn Retribution and the Wither, if you're leveling up your tune, that's pretty much like the only power you need to know. And even in the high level stuff, I mean, if that's all you did, if you learned how to do that and nothing else, you can still at least put some decent damage out there. I'm not saying that you're going to top the charts or that's what you should be doing, but it at least gives you some pretty good numbers. It's also one of the quickest powers that Celestial has as far as getting the advanced mechanic started. The advanced mechanic in Celestial is combo based, so what that means is that any time that we do a multi-button press combo, it'll start the AM for us. Now some combos only have one button press, like Smite into Haunt or Haunt into Smite, like we just talked about. Those do not activate the advanced mechanic. Now they will keep the advanced mechanic going, but they don't activate it at all. Alright, so let's go through the rotation here. So we're going to start off with Retribution into Wither, and that's this power here, and so that's the combo for that. One of the things I will point out about this, just as far as timing is concerned on this combo, certainly something you should practice in front of a training tummy, kind of like what I'm doing here. But when you do this, you'll see his hand come out, okay, and you'll see like a little flash of the yellow light there. When that yellow flash comes up, that means that you can hit the next button in the combo, which is melee. When we do melee, you'll see he brings his hands up. Okay, I didn't complete the combo there, but I just want you to see. So I tap melee, his hands come up. You'll notice at a certain point when his hands come up, there's a bright white flash. It's right there, okay? And that means that you can do the second part of the combo. So there, and then there, okay? So a lot of the combos have tells as far as when to hit the next button based on these flashes of lights that you see. So pay close attention to that when you're looking at certain moves and you're trying to get the timing down. The little lights will kind of give you an idea of when you should be doing your power. So once again, light, and then you got the light there. Alright, so that's the first move that you'll do. So that's the Retribution into Wither. I have that in my 5th slot there. In my 2nd and 3rd slot, I have my buffs. The first buff there in the 2nd slot is called Anoint, and that gives you a 15% precision boost and a restoration boost as well. This affects the group and four members of the group, I think, you and 3 others. And it basically just kind of gives you a little boost in your precision number, so your damage goes up a little bit higher. The power that's next to that, the little sword there, is called Anoint. And it's called Benediction. Sorry, we just talked about Anoint. The next one's called Benediction, and this is our crit buff. So basically, it gives you like a 10% crit increase when we do that. So if I do these here, you just can see here that if I look under the current effects, you'll see Anoint, and there's 270 restoration and 15% precision on our group there for 12 seconds. Alright, if we do Benediction, sorry, you can see here that this gives us a 10% ability crit and a 10% weapon crit for 12 seconds. Now, a lot of powers have those kind of buffs in one power. Celestial has them combined into 2. So that's kind of one situation that we have a little bit of an issue with here, is that you kind of have to have 2 slots on your power tray kind of taken up by these buffs, but they're kind of necessary. You really need them to keep your damage as optimal as possible. Alright, so typically the way that we're going to do this rotation here is, like we say, we're going to start off with Retribution into Wither. Alright, now you see that combo there when he does the arm wave at the end. Kind of looks very similar to a move from the Hand Blaster weapon. I can't remember the name of the move, but kind of a similar hand waving thing there. We do not want to let that animation play out typically when we're doing our rotation. So this brings us into something called clipping. If you haven't heard of clipping before, or maybe you've heard of it and aren't aware of what it is, it's basically doing a move and then cutting the animation short with another move, so that way you don't waste time letting the animation kind of completely play out. So you can see here, when I do Retribution into Wither, there's the hand wave, and it takes a little bit of time to do. In this cookie cutter rotation here, the standard rotation, we do this, and then we clip that with those 2 buffs. You see how I hit both of those buffs at the same time, and it also kind of stopped the arm waving mechanic from going there. Okay, so that's pretty much the first way that we start off this AM here. We do the Retribution to Wither, and then we hit the 2 buffs. Okay, and that kind of keeps the AM going. Now, what's nice about the buffs is they do keep the AM going as well. So if you start off with Retribution and kind of get the AM in motion, then what you can do there is kind of keep your power up. Because if you do the buffs first, it'll take the power away, and then you can do your Retribution to Wither. But see, it took some off my power bar if you're paying attention up there. If I do it the opposite way, though, where I do Retribution into Wither first, and then the buffs, you can see that my power starts coming back like right away. So it kind of keeps things going and allows us to have our power a little better off there. Alright, so Retribution into Wither, and we clip that with the buffs, and then we're going to do the Plague into the Corrupted Divine Light, which is what I have in slot 1 there. And you can see the purple mist that it kind of emits there. It does a big AoE of precision damage there. I'm just going to isolate the Plague move here for a second, because there's a couple things I want to talk about with it. So first of all, this is the longest combo to get off by far. It's actually a 3-button press type combo. In the case of Retribution and Wither, it's just that melee and range, right? So that's a 2-button press combo. But in here, when we start Plague, it's melee range, and then hold melee. And that gives us that purple mist there. Now the other thing I just want to point out here with Plague as well, into Corrupted Divine Light, is that you'll get those flashes of lights again. So watch this. Flash, 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 and then you can do your combo. So when you see the bright white flashes there, that's basically when it's time to hit the next button in the sequence. Alright, so that'll help you out. Now, two other things about Plague to Corrupted Divine Light I just want to get at is that one, as you can see, it's a very long move. And once again, clipping will be very important with it. As you can see when we get to the end here, there's a lot of time where he's up in the air, just hovering there. And that's wasted damage potential. So you want to clip it, just after you do that last move. Like, he shouldn't even really leave the ground. The other thing I just want to point out with Plague here, and this is just something you have to deal with, is the fact that it takes a step forward. So every time you do it, step, see how you take a step forward, and then we'll wait for it to come off cooldown here. Do it again. Okay, so you do it enough times, obviously you're going to get closer and closer and closer to the action. So you do need to be aware of that. What a lot of the pro, elite Celestial players do is they will kind of jump and do the Plague move here. I personally have never gotten used to that, and I just really haven't practiced with it. But it does kind of prevent you from moving forward. So like you can actually jump and then do the move, and then kind of go from there, and that'll kind of stop you from moving forward, really, because you can kind of move while you're doing that. Oops, and I accidentally hit my Cursed Idol supercharge there, which we'll talk about here in a second. As you can see, it does a lot of might damage. It's a AoE. Kind of reminds me of a Soulwell a little bit from Sorcery, except that it's a cool looking skull. But outside of that, it kind of works the same. Alright, once this supercharge fades out here, I'll get back to the standard rotation that I was talking about. Okay, so we're going to do Retribution, Wither, Buffs, Plague, and we're going to combo into this, and then we're going to clip that with Smite, and then we're going to go back to Retribution and Wither. So what we want to do here, and if that was a little too fast for you, I'm going to slow it down. We're going to do our Plague, and then you'll see right there, you'll do the Smite, okay? And that basically is a quick clip, and it prevents us from having to go through the whole floaty animation at the end of the Plague into Corrupted Divine Light there. So, we can do this. I just want you to see. So, there, and then there. See, like I even went a little too high there as far as that's concerned. So far in order, it's Retribution, Wither, Buffs, Plague, into Corrupted Divine Light, and then Smite. Okay, and then after Smite, we're going to do another Retribution into Wither. Okay, so we do Retribution, Wither, Buffs, Plague, Smite, Retribution, Wither, back into Plague. And you can see that if we keep this up, we just do that until the buffs come off cooldown, and then we just go right back into the rotation here. So what ends up happening is these things kind of flow right into each other as far as the way that they work. Okay, so that way we line the timing up perfectly, and we don't really lose any time doing the damage there. Okay, so once again, kind of just breaking it down into its elements: Retribution, Wither, Buffs, Plague into Corrupted Divine Light, Smite, Retribution, back to Plague, Smite again, Retribution, and then by then your buffs are off, and then you just repeat the whole thing again. So like I said, the rotation flows into itself very nicely. Alright, so that's pretty much the basic cookie cutter rotation with Celestial there. Now, like I said, one thing that you do want to be aware of is just that plague does move you forward. Talked a little bit about jumping along with doing the plague. So, you know, you can start plague off and then jump and then, oops, see, I'm not very good at this here. Start plague off, jump, and then, you know, kind of do it there. That way you don't move forward. So if you want to practice that, that's fine. Now what I do here is that normally you are stationary when you're doing the celestial combos. You can't move while you're doing them, but you can move while you're doing the buffs. So what I will typically do, because I'm not really good at that jumping thing, is I'll do my combo and then I'll find myself moving forward with plague here. Okay, and then when I do my buffs, I can kind of run back a little bit, and then I can continue my rotation from there. So while the buffs are going on, you actually do get the ability to kind of run or move a little bit. So just keep that in mind. One other thing I just want to talk about here real quick too, and this is just kind of just general, it doesn't necessarily affect this rotation specifically, is that you can kind of block and cancel a lot of these moves. So like for instance, if we're in the middle of a combo, you can block, okay, and that'll stop it. And that gives you the chance to roll out of the way, or if you need to block because Carol Ferris is doing something like that in Love and War or something, you get the opportunity to do so. And that pretty much applies to all the combos. So like if we're doing Plague here and we're stuck in the middle of it, we can stop it, okay? So keep that in mind. So that's pretty much that. Alright, so one other thing you can kind of do along with this is add in things like your trinkets and your supercharge and stuff like that. So a lot of times what people will do is they'll start off with the trinket, then they'll do their retribution into their buff, and then they'll go ahead and do their rotation. And then what you might do is you might bring in your Cursed Idol here. Cursed Idol is a 35% supercharge, and it does a might tick damage there. It does have one really special thing though that it does, is of course that the AM, when it's up and going, it gives you a much higher damage tick. And also if enemies get destroyed while the Cursed Idol is up, it'll do damage, like the enemy will explode and it'll cause more damage to happen to other enemies around it. So I like Cursed Idol a little bit, just in the sense that it does a tick and it's kind of nice in doing some explosive damage to some of the other enemies around it. Alright, so that's the cookie cutter rotation. Now, the one problem with this rotation is that it doesn't kill things very quickly. As you can see, there's a lot of setup time and doing the combos and things like that. So if you're in there with somebody who's, one of the kind of more quick power sets as far as the burst damage is concerned, in duos and things like that, or alerts even, or anything under tier, you're not going to do very good damage with this rotation because it just takes too darn long to do anything. So I just want to talk about two other rotations real quickly. We won't spend as much time on these, but just want to talk about them. The first rotation, and you can certainly do this, and it's a very easy rotation to do, just happens to do with the 3 buff rotation is what we call this, because it uses 3 buffs in the loadout tray. So in slot 1 we have Consume Souls, which is just kind of a clip, and it's also does a little bit of might base damage, but we don't really do the whole combo with it or anything like that. We just kind of use it as a clipper and as a way to do a little bit of might ticks. Then as far as the other powers are concerned, here we have Dark Pact. This is our might buff, and then next to that, of course, we have Anoint and Benediction. So basically we start the rotation off by doing Retribution and Wither. Remember, that's always the way, because you want to start that off quick. And then we just kind of do all 4 of those, and then we just continuously go Retribution, Wither, Smite, Haunt over and over and over again. until our buffs are off cooldown, and then we just hit those 4 again and go. Okay, and that's it. I mean, that's all there is to this rotation. You can actually do some pretty good damage just doing this. The buffs are pretty significant, and you know, you can do these pretty quick, you know, because you can clip these animations and kind of do some decent damage this way. So if you want something really simple but effective, this is maybe a good way to go too. It also lets you do damage a little more quickly than you normally would in the other rotation that we just talked about, because really you don't have as much to do. Now, one other rotation that you might want to do here is what we have a move here called Wrath of the Presence, and this is probably Celestial's most damaging burst damage move that they have here. It does require that you be within mid-range or closer. Of course, just like all the other powers, the closer you are, the more damage you do. And this is kind of really quick and bursty, so this is really good for duos and things like that, under tier as well. So you'll see here the way that we do this one is we'll do Consume Souls, which is kind of the reverse of Wrath of the Presence, actually. Consume Souls, just by itself, you can see it just does one little might dot there for a second. If we combo it, which is melee and then hold melee, you see that it does kind of a dot tick there. So what we normally will do is we'll start off with Consume Souls, and then we'll do our buffs like we did before for the last rotation, and then we'll just do Wrath of the Presence, which is also tap melee, hold melee, and that's how we do the buff there for that, or the combo for that. One thing that I typically will do, you know, to kind of get in the rhythm, is we'll go 1, and then we'll do the buffs, and then we'll do 2 of these, 1, 2, and then we'll do Consume Souls again to get the dot back up, and then we'll do that, and then we'll do that, and then this will get us to a point where we can kind of get the Wrath of the Presence going again. Alright, now if you're in some really under-tiered stuff where, you know, you pretty much just breathe on things and things die, you can pretty much just do Wrath of the Presence over and over again. You can see as the AM kicks in here that the numbers, even without the buffs, are not bad. I mean, you can see like I'm getting, you know, 100,000 on some of these sparring targets here. So, you know, obviously, even if you add the buffs in and don't do the Consume Souls part of it, you can, you know, still do some good damage here. Alright, so that's pretty much it for that. So those are kind of probably going to be your 3 most basic rotations when it comes to the DPS side of Celestial here. Alright. Now, the other thing I just want to talk about here is healing. Unfortunately, you know, without people to heal, I can't really show this off, but I just want to talk about it for a quick second and give you like my 2 basic loadouts that I use for healing. Now, Celestial has 2 ways to heal. We have traditional healing, and then we have what we call battle healing. First, I'll show you the traditional Celestial healing loadout that I use here. Alright, there is one power I do need to make a change with here real quick, so give me 1 second. I didn't have my armories together correctly, and unfortunately the powers that I want are not there. Healer, so we're going to do Divine Light here. Alright, so for healing, at least at the full healing level, there is not much comboing that you need to do. In fact, comboing almost in a way it works against you, because you have to do so much time in order to actually do the combos, right? So we try to kind of keep the comboing down to a minimum when it comes to the healing side of things, though there is one combo that is totally worthwhile, and that is Admonish into Blight, and that is what I have in my 3rd slot here. When we do this power, it's just tap melee and then hold range, and that's what happens there. You'll see when we do that, we get this glowy kind of thing coming out of our chest. That actually will happen to all the players in the group, up to 8 players if you're in a raid, and that's just a nice heal over time. The first part of Admonish is actually a nice burst heal, and it does some burst healing right off the bat, so it's almost like kind of hitting a group version of your single target heal, which is Renew, which I have in the 6th slot there. Outside of that, there's not really much comboing. Alright, so what would end up happening here, if we were just kind of healing in a standard way, is you can start off with Admonish into Blight, and then what I do is I clip that with Consume Souls. Consume Souls is another heal over time, so if you do those 2 moves together, like this, then you have 2 hots going, and you have the 1 burst heal from the Admonish that you started off with. So really a nice way to kind of get healing going, and kind of keeps the the hots, I should say, going throughout the fights. Now the other things here, of course, is we have Renew, which is our 6th power there. It's just a little healing cross there. That's just our quick 1-person heal. Just heals the person who's got the lowest amount of health at the time. We also have Blessing, which is in the 2nd slot. This is our shield, and so this is a 4-person shield that'll cover everybody in an alert, or up to 4 people in a raid. And of course it works like all the other healer shields. It's based off your resto and kind of takes some damage that way. And then the other power that I have on here is Divine Light. Divine Light is an 8-person heal, and what it does is it kind of works like a supply drop to a degree. You use it, and initially that first blast will give you a nice big heal, and then it kind of ticks for as long as people are standing in the thing there. One thing I also want to point out too, you'll see this happen. You'll see when we do a move here, you see how all the sparring targets have this kind of glowing yellow mist around them? That is a power interaction for Celestial. It's called Purification. And basically what that means is that when an enemy hits you, it actually translates into minor little heals that you can get back. So if you keep things up that have Purification, when they're hitting the tank or hitting you or whatever, you'll get a little bit of a heal back from the hit that they do, so it doesn't hurt quite as much. And then the final thing that I have on my bar here is Consecrated Ground. That's the supercharge that's in the middle there. This supercharge is pretty amazing in certain situations. It's basically a damage mitigator. It is not a heal, but it does absorb up to 75% of any damage being done to you at the time. So if you throw this over a target, you'll get this kind of mast of light, and you'll see the glowing yellow floor here. If you are standing in this column of light on the floor here, you will take 75% less damage than if you were not. So it's kind of a damage mitigator, not really a heal, but it works really well in certain situations. So a lot of times that's very useful. Otherwise, if you don't want to use Consecrated Ground, Cursed Idol is also very good in this situation too. There's also another power that people like to use in the healing side of things called Sacrifice. It basically puts a shield up around everybody. It's a group heal, and it also does a little bit of power back for people. The one thing about it though, and the reason it's called Sacrifice, is because it does not put a shield around the healer. It is supposed to aggro things towards the healer, and if the healer dies, then people get even more healing. So it is kind of an interesting power in that sense. There is another supercharge that Celestial has called Life Drain, but it's typically not really used. Most people don't find that to be a very useful power. Alright, so we talked about 2 ways of healing with Celestial. That's kind of the standard healing loadout that I use. As far as the other way is what we call battle healing. And battle healing, what that does is that actually converts any damage that you do into heals. Any precision-based damage, I should say. So it has to either be weapon damaged or damage from a combo. Any damage that is a yellow number or that comes from might, that does not translate into healing. Battle healing is completely centered around that second power on my tray here, which is called Malediction. Malediction is the cursed version of Benediction, which is on the blessed tree. And this is one of the times where you actually do want to combo the power. Okay, so in this case, we want to combo Malediction into Benediction. If we do this, what you'll see here is we get these purple kind of balls around our hand here. And as long as those purple balls are up, any damage that you do with those white numbers like that, that is going to be converted into healing. So you keep that up, and then you can really do some damage here, and it kind of keeps the heals going. Now the only problem with this is that if you are doing this and you get interrupted or knocked down, you have to wait for that to come off cooldown in order for you to be able to heal again using damage. So it is a very good idea to keep some regular heals on the loadout bar. So typically I will certainly spec into some weapon mastery of some kind. Here I use bow into pistols. So I will typically do my move, I'll clip it with Anoint, and then I'll do my weapon mastery combo here just to save some power. Occasionally I will go ahead and do Plague, just like we do in the damage version. Plague is kind of cool because it gives us the same benefits as Divine Light does. It'll put a purple glyph underneath all the people and heal them, but it also does damage like it normally does in the DPS role. And of course, if you have this purple thing going on with your hands, any damage that you do that's white numbers is a heal. So you can see all those white numbers there, that's a heal over time. And then as long as the purple is under my feet, that would be a heal as well. So Plague into Corrupted Divine Light works very well in a battle heal environment. I keep the other two traditional heals on here as well, which is Admonish into Blight along with Consume Souls. So that keeps a hot going all the time if we need to. And then of course Divine Light, which is our burst heal with the little kind of hot after that as well. I like to use that as kind of the holy crap button. There are certainly other battle healing loadouts that are more aggressive. This one's kind of a blend between normal healing and doing damage to heal. There are some other rotations though that you could certainly try out. Some of them involve the Wrath of the Presence that we talked about earlier on the DPS side. And then another one that's really popular too deals with the Blessing and Death Mark, which is the comboable power from Blessing. So hopefully that kind of gives you some information about Celestial. It is a little bit of a more complex power compared to some, but it is a lot of fun if you're looking for things to do that are a little more challenging. Maybe not quite as complex as Hard Light, but certainly more complex than Ice per se. And what's kind of nice about this is just it feels like hey, I'm doing something in the middle of the fights and stuff like that. So this is what's a perfect speed for me. If you do have any questions for me, hit me up in game as far as anything I can answer for you. But hopefully this kind of gives you some general ideas of how things work here. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Abracadabra signing off, and we'll see ya in game.